Hey friends, thank you for joining me, Leigh-Ann Abigail Evans, to another message from heaven. Today I wanted to tell you about something that happened to me quite a few years ago. There's a local dam here that has got a whole lot of geese, many geese, and these geese go into such a frenzy when people come out with what looks like a packet of breadcrumbs. I had just come out of hospital. I wasn't allowed to drive for a year because they had suspected I'd had a seizure. And my husband used to drive me down to the dam, and I would sit on a chair or a bench, whatever was available. I would sit there and wait for him while he went off to do grocery shopping. And this happened every weekend. And it just became a place for me of just enjoying watching these geese. They were so comical. The one day in particular, there was a really large flock of them. I liked to sit where they were all around me. I'd go and plant my chair, my camping chair, where they were all around me. And I planted myself, and suddenly some people arrived, and there was this squawking and quacking. You know what geese are like, they make such a noise. And they all started tootling off in such a hurry to get to where this feast was for them. And I watched them go, but right behind them was this really slow one. He had this mangled foot, and he was limping and hobbling and trying to keep up with the others, but he just couldn't. He was so badly deformed in that foot. And he tried to take a few steps, and then he just stopped and he looked away from them, almost over the water. And I could have sworn there was this pensive look on this duck's face. Now people must think I'm mad when I speak like this. But I really identified with him at this point. It's like in the hurry and chaos of the world, we get left out when we're in a difficult season. I was in a really bad place at that point. And there was so little I can do. I had so little quality of life. I wasn't able to walk very much. I could walk a few steps and I would have to sit down. And I was very homebound. I could never get out. So these moments of being out were such a treasure for me. And that's what I want to encourage you with today, is you can be in the worst of situations, the worst possible circumstances of your life, but there's still something that you can find, that you can be grateful for, that you can enjoy, even if it's for a few moments. There's always something. As I sat watching this poor goose, like I say, I identified with him. I had a little moment of having a bit of a self-pity, which never is helpful. Going on a pity party, it's not worth it. But just watching this goose, I felt so sorry for him. I thought, I wish that I had brought something so he could have had something. Because if he did manage to waddle over, it would have all been gone, because the flock was so big that whatever these people had brought as an offering, they probably would have each only got 1 or 2 crumbs. But while this whole flock was distracted with this feeding frenzy on one side, they'd moved off quite far away. This lady arrived. She was with a man, and they came down to where the water's edge was. And she was absolutely petrified of this goose. She was walking towards the one with the sore foot. And I watched her walking down, approaching him. The man she was with stayed back, and I asked him, I said, what's going on there? So he said she's actually doing a therapy session. She has got a huge fear of birds, and she has been encouraged to come and desensitize by interacting with these birds here. But she's too afraid of the big flock, so she wants to try and single one out. You know, that day, fear met infirmity. This fearful woman and this infirm duck met together. And I tell you something, it was so joyful, because that's where the message of heaven came from for me. In Psalm 23 verse 5 it says, He prepares a table before me in the presence of my enemies. This lady brought a feast for this goose as she started to give him his own feast, which was only for him. It didn't have to be shared with the multitude. He got to be fed without making any effort from his part. God had sent him this lady that needed her own healing. And he now gobbled up this bread or whatever she had brought him. You could just almost hear the conversation between these two. It was so precious. They were just ministering to each other. You know, her just desensitizing from this irrational fear she had, and this goose finally having his own feast, not being left out anymore. The fact that he was infirmed, God sent him his own beautiful end to that story. And for me, it became a prophecy of what would happen in my life. That one day, I would also receive my feast. I would no longer have to sit on the edges, sit on the periphery of the world, sit being so isolated and alone. And you know, that has come to pass. I get to now minister to others. I get to go and bring God's encouragement and joy and love to others. I get them to I get to help them to find their way in a world that is so fast. You know, we're told in Psalm 46 verse 10 to be still and to know that He is God. We can't do that when we're on a hamster wheel. We can't do that with the frenetic pace of the world around us. The instant gratification, the stressful, I need it now culture that we live in. Everything is so fast. There's so much impatience. We're not going to find our feasts in that. We're going to live on the scraps. We're going to get the crumbs of the feeding frenzy. But when we stand back, when we get to just take in things that are from God, when we allow Him to prepare that table before us, we won't go hungry. We won't feed on scraps. We will have the best. And sometimes it gets to be done in the presence of our enemies. For me, the enemies were the enemies in my flesh. Those symptoms, that hopelessness, that anxiety, those voices that used to say, this is your life forever. You are never going to be free again. You are never going to be able to rejoin society. You're always going to feel sick and helpless and hopeless. Well, God showed up through a goose and a lady who was terrified of Him and gave me hope. And I hope that this gives you hope too, to know that God is able to do anything. So whatever situation you find yourself in, open yourself up and let Him minister to you. And may He bless and keep you always. See you next time. If you have enjoyed these videos, my husband keeps telling me to say this, and I don't like saying it, but I'm going to. Would you please like and subscribe to my channel? I would like to get these out to as many people as I can in an attempt to glorify our Lord and to just encourage. That is my heart. I have such a heart to encourage others. So if you would like and subscribe, I would be very grateful. And share these with whoever you think would need encouragement.